Kyle Lana here, bringing you the latest edition of my video blog. And in this installment, I'd like to talk about, and this is a topic that it's going to get flack and both praise and flack, because in this video, I'm going to explain why I'm a Chael Sonnen fan. And instead of just saying that I'm a big fan of him, I'd like to clarify why. Instead of just going out there and saying why, just saying I'm a fan of his and giving no backup behind it. It's better to clarify things and have logic and some reason behind it. So that's what I'm gonna do in this video. That's what I think makes the most sense at this time. Is that you know, in a time where the man is both loved and hated. And rightfully so. Those of you that don't like the guy, absolutely. You have all the reason in the world to. And those of you that like him, you have all the reason to as well. That's the thing, is that in MMA, it's such it is a great community to be a part of, but we are so divided because it's about individuals. There are fight teams, they have people to train them, but it's in the end, when the door is shut, it's the fighter himself. That's it. It's about the guy, just the guy in there who's competing, and everything that he's learned, it's all on him. It's a very individual sport. Yes, you train with a team, but they're not in there fighting for you. So it makes and that's why people are divided. Is that it's one guy or one girl that you're a fan of. So it's very. I think it really called for me to clarify why I'm a fan of Chael Sonnen. And I'll be honest with you, and just before anything, I get into all this, before I get rolling, thanks to the followers, being a part of the MMA community is an honor. It's a privilege to talk with all of you on Twitter. Thank you to all of you. Really, it's an absolute pleasure. Talking MMA every day is truly one of the greatest things possible. It's such a great sport, and everybody is, for the most part, very understanding and very supportive. So thank you to you. And big shout out to Couch Fighter. Without being given the chance, I would have never been able, not been able, but just would have never tried to attempt any of this stuff. So big shout out to Couch Fighter. Big things coming for the future. Articles coming out every day. Give it a look. So hopping right into it. Why I'm a fan of Chael Sonnen, I'll be dead honest with you, is that I knew who Chael Sonnen was before he fought Anderson Silva. I didn't know Chael Sonnen well at all. Not at all, but I knew who Chael Sonnen was, but I didn't know him to the extent that I know about him now. And the fight against Anderson Silva, and there's particular things I'm going to get into, is that yes, did he not pass the drug test? Yes, he tested positive for higher testosterone levels, but before that fight, I knew who he was, but after that fight, I wanted to know more about him. A guy who could take one of the greatest pound for pound fighters, and this is coming from a guy who's not an Anderson Silva fan, one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world of all time in the UFC, take him the distance, and lose in the end. And it was a devastating loss for the guy, and all the respect to Silva, one of 3 finishes to come in the 5th round in UFC history is nothing but respectable. But what made me, the next day, I was reading everything I could about the guy. And yes, does he talk trash? It's a part of his game. But I wanted to read and get to know more about him. And this is when I started to turn everything on, being a fully fledged. I was a big MMA fan before that, but it made me really. That was a big step for me when becoming a really diehard MMA fan. Is that I wanted to find out more about this guy. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down his fighting style and all that. I think I have a pretty good knack for that, but and explain a couple other things. Is that Chael Sonnen, what I like about Chael Sonnen, he has exceptional boxing. It's very underrated, though, is that it sets up his exceptional wrestling ability. And to say that he's not a top 5 wrestler in MMA is absolutely ludicrous. And this is throwing out all aside whether he's cheating or not. I'm just talking about it straight up. And if that's just how I'm going to call it from this point out, is that I'm just calling it how it is. And he is a great wrestler. He gets a hold of you, you're going to the ground. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Yushin Okami, whether you're Nate Marquardt, even Brian Stanton, who is, he's a warrior, the guy. The guy's a real-life warrior, a strong guy, and, he made him look like a rag doll. The fact that Chael Sonnen took over 14 months off And ring rust is the most definitely it is real. Ring rust is a real thing. He had no ring rust. He came out and it was a flawless performance. He ate some shots from Brian Stan, but still, the guy dominated that fight. And Chael Sonnen, his wrestling is spectacular. And you know what? He's training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. I don't care what anybody else says. He would have never tried to pull that stuff in the past. Does he have submission victories in the past? He does. But the guy's training in BJJ. In order to get ahead, you've got to be the best, and you can't have any holes in your game. And it takes losses, big losses in your career to realize that. And I think that's what, even though it's happened multiple times, why he's lost in submission or how he's lost submission-wise, it takes you only improve yourself by losing. You learn, and someone said that you can't learn a lot from losing. That is false. You learn more lessons from losing than you do from winning. That's a fact. That's coming from a coach. That's coming from someone who used to compete. You learn a lot from losing. And you know what? When I was told that, it didn't irritate me. It's just you can learn from losing. And Chael Sonnen learned from his loss from Anderson Silva and all the other losses in the past. You need to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in order to get ahead. And he most definitely is, and he's going to need it when whoever he fights next. Middleweight's a very, I don't want to say it's the best division, but you need to know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in any division in the UFC. You have to. That's a foundation that you have to know. Like I said, his boxing is very underrated, but it helps set up his exceptional takedown ability. There's no better fighter besides GSP and a couple other guys that do a better double leg or single leg takedown than Chael Sonnen. So fighting style is great. Learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, great stand-up, and his wrestling is some of the best in MMA. Now, this is where it gets dicey. His personality. People think that, Sonnen is a punk and, the way he acts and everything like that. And it's understandable, and I think before that when he was in WEC, he didn't do any of this stuff. He didn't really talk as much trash or didn't try, and if you want to call it trash, he didn't talk as much trash and he just went out there and fought. But, Chael Sonnen's he's playing the game. That's what it is. That's the way I see it, and don't give me flack for it. Has he said things about Brazil in the past that may have not been right? Sure, absolutely. Some of the things he said. I'll say it. I'll go on and say that's not what I would have said, but that's his style. That's what he does, and I know it irritates people. And I'm not saying I 100% stand by it. Do I laugh and think it? I'm not saying that I fully support what he said about Brazil, but I guess you could say what he said in the past about interviews, they are fighting words. He's trying to pick a fight, and think about it. The man was at an all-time low between the fraud, the TRT, the testosterone, testing positive for that, and not being allowed to fight in the UFC. The guy was trying to pick a fight. And, you're forced to do, when you're at an all-time low, you're forced to do, just about anything to get your foot back in the door. That's the way I see it, but I'm not clarifying or justifying what he said about Brazil was right at all. But that's what he did. And that's what's happened, and you can't change the past. But he was trying to get a fight against anybody, really. The man was trying to pick a fight, and they said in the past they're fighting words. So that's what he does. Even when he beat Brian Stan, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. That's what he does. He's trying to get his title fight. I'm not saying. I think Chael Sonnen's best way of talking is in the octagon. The guy's a talented fighter, and he gets it done every time he's in there, and that's regardless of his record. He's a very impressive fighter, and I know people disagree on that, and that's fine. But the best talking you can possibly do is either on the field, in the octagon, anywhere. That's the best type of talk. Actions speak louder than words. But you know what? The guy's trying to get his fight back. He's trying to pick a fight with Silva, and, that's what he's trying to do. Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. It got his attention, didn't it? That's what it did. And no matter what Ed Soares says or what Anderson Silva says, in the end, Dana White is the guy who picks the card. So, maybe Chael Sonnen did his job about getting the fight, but I'm not bashing Silva either. Maybe, I know he's a fierce competitor and he's going to go out and get it done, but, I'd respect Sonnen's game after that fight, even though he did beat Sonnen. Of course he did, most definitely, but I'd respect the guy. The guy definitely took you the distance, TRT or not. He did. Not the distance, but he took you almost the entire fight. So he's that in regards to that, they're fighting words. I think that's the way I take it. Not saying I support everything he's done, but that's what he does. It's his personality, and he's playing Zuffa or Dana White's game. In the end, what it comes down to is money, and hyping the fight. If you could, I watched a video on YouTube about a guy who was filming Chael Sonnen's post-fight interview after 136. The crowd went nuts. People are gonna seriously to say that 134 UFC 134 I believe, sold out in 42 or 46 minutes. It's one of those two. UFC, whatever it is, against Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva will sell out quicker than that. In the end, it's all about money, and he's selling a fight. That's the way it goes, and that's what Chael Sonnen's doing. So whether you believe in what he said or not, I totally respect that. But in the end, he's trying to get a fight that's going to make a lot of money. And it's people want to see the rematch. There's a lot of questions. Can Chael Sonnen do it again? Can Anderson Silva beat Chael Sonnen and shut him up? There's all those questions about it, and I want to see the fight personally too. And people saying that there's other middleweights out there. The middleweight division's a little shallow. There's not that deep in talent, but I'd love to see the fight again. I hope it happens, and I think Anderson Silva also needs to do a super fight, like I've talked about in one of my other videos. But I respect Anderson Silva, and I just certainly hope that him and Chael Sonnen fight again. Questions need to be answered. The critics need to be silenced, me being one of them. So that's what I think about his personality. And lastly, one things I respect more, and I was out and I was talking to a friend about this. He's not a big UFC fan, but I was explaining something to him. What I respected so much about Chael Sonnen is that, say that he can't finish fighters. He did finish Brian Stann, great submission victory, but maybe Chael Sonnen struggles a little bit with finishing fighters. But you know what? The one thing I respect most about the guy is that instead of finishing you, and maybe he can't, but instead of finishing you, he would rather go 3 rounds or 5 rounds with you and beat you down to a pulp, break your will instead of finishing you. I feel like the bigger lesson is learned when you've gone through 5 rounds and gone to decision and have been beaten to a pulp and not get finished. You learn more from that, is that, man, I never want to fight that guy again. You get knocked out, I feel like you're getting off easy. And I've never been knocked out. I mean, I've been knocked out before. I've been knocked out in hockey one time. Not in a fight, but that was from a hit. But when you get knocked out, I feel like you get off easy. If you go through 5 rounds and you take a beating like that, man, that takes some freaking courage. And in the end of the day, you're questioning, man, I don't want to fight that guy again, man. That guy is a freaking tough guy. Chael Sonnen could take a beating. We all know that. Chael Sonnen took a beating against Silva, even though he controlled most of the fight. The guy likes to punish people. He likes to beat you down and break your will. He likes to put you on your back. He likes to beat you down and let you know you've been in a fight. That's the number one reason why I'm a Chael Sonnen fan, minus all the BS that he does. That's the number one reason why I'm a fan. Everybody talks about the knockouts, and I understand that some of the new followers of MMA and all that. I'm a Chael Sonnen fan because I respect his fighting style. And bash me or not, but you know what? I'd rather someone know they've been in a fight and respect you because of that than get knocked down and get off easy. And I'm not bashing. I love knockouts, but I respect that fighting style. He can control you on the mat and beat you down to a pulp, let you know you've been in a fight, and it's a humbling experience. I'm not saying whether he humbled Silva or some of that, but you know what? It is a humbling experience. When you get beaten down to your all-time low, you can't do anything about it. Look at Brian Stann's face after 136. I mean, Jesus, man, I trained so hard for Chael Sonnen. There was nothing I can do. The guy completely dominated me. That's the face of a guy that, you got beaten down. And Chael Sonnen let him go off easy with the submission, but, he beat you down. You couldn't do anything about it. His wrestling, his ground and pound, everything about it. That's why, I could talk about all his personality and everything that he said, and that's not why I'm a big Sonnen fan. Is it entertaining? Of course. Do I support the things he said about Brazil? No, not at all. That's not my style. I like to be respectful about things, and I respect both sides of it. I respect Anderson Silva, doesn't mean I'm a fan of him. I respect Chael Sonnen, and I'm a fan of him. That's the way it works. I respect his fighting style. I respect the way he goes about it. The guy's a gamer. He trains hard. People could learn a lot of lessons from him. Once it's time to get in the gym, he hits it hard. The fact that he had no ring rust is so it's incredible to say about his training regimen. Whether he's a cheater or not. I'm trying to keep this as neutral as possible. I respect the man's fighting style. Go in there, let them know they've been in a fight. I'll fight anybody you put in front of me. The fact that he's volunteering to fight in light heavyweight fights, volunteering to fight anybody at middleweight, that's a guy that I want to see fight. A guy that'll step up with anybody, not avoiding fights or not fighting your own teammates or anything. That I'll fight anybody you put in front of me. That's what I respect the most. That's why I'm a Chael Sonnen fan. And I hope that clarifies that, And like I said, I respect everybody in the MMA community, and I hope that clarifies why I'm a fan. And that's what I have to say about that. I hope this answers some questions. It is Friday night. I'm gonna get off of here. This is Kyle Delaney signing off. Everybody have a great night and a great weekend. I'm out of here.